Ben Gvir and his ilk, they are extremist firebrands that even the US has sanctioned in the past. They want settlements. They say that they want to stay in Gaza.
Yeah.
The infrastructure that the IDF is creating in Gaza points to a permanent stay there in some parts. Are you sure, is USG sure that Israel will pull out, or that it will stay for, I don't know, months, years afterwards?
What I can tell you is this, Christian. First, it's our policy, and it's been our policy very clearly, including principles that I laid out months ago at the very beginning of the conflict in Tokyo, that there can't be a permanent occupation of Gaza, that Israel has to pull out, that the territory of Gaza shouldn't be changed, and of course it obviously can't be run by Hamas or used as a base of terrorism. The ceasefire deal itself requires the Israeli forces to pull back, and then, assuming you get to a permanent ceasefire, to pull out entirely. But that's what's so critical about this post-conflict plan, the need to come to an agreement on its arrangements, because there has to be something in place that gives Israelis the confidence that they can pull out permanently and not have Hamas fill back in and not have a repeat of the last, really, decade.
I want to ask you in the broad picture, because I was actually quite stunned that I saw President-elect Trump retweet a position by a former U.S. official, Jeffrey Sachs, as you know very well. He basically called Benjamin Netanyahu a mean, rude SOB, dark and all the rest of it, and then alluded to the fact that it's him running the show and not USG. USG, the biggest backer of Israel, has not been able to change the dynamic in any appreciable form. What did you think of President Trump? Do you think that's a message that he plans to be harder than maybe you? And also, do you think that the tail has often been wagging the dog? That no matter what you've said about respecting international law, getting humanitarian aid in, all of the rest of it, your clients have ignored you by and large. So I'm wondering whether you think it's time to re-ask the question that former President Trump did during particularly fraught negotiations, when he said, who is the effing superpower here?
So first, I focus less on personalities and more on policies. What is a given country actually doing? Doesn't matter who the individual is, what are they actually doing? Second, I think that what's been misunderstood around the world is ascribing to one individual, or maybe a small group of individuals, the policies that Israel's pursuing that many people don't like. I think this is a reflection of 70, 80, 90% of Israelis following the trauma of October 7th. And ascribing this to any one individual, I think, is a mistake and actually leads you to maybe draw the wrong conclusions. This is where the country is. And the policies that the government's pursuing are really a reflection of the country, even many people who don't like the prime minister. So that's one thing, and it's important to understand that. You have a traumatized society, just as you have a traumatized Palestinian society because of the horrors that children, women, and men have had to endure in Gaza, caught in this crossfire of Hamas's initiation that they didn't start and are powerless to stop.
I'm not going to ask you the genocide question because I've heard you answer it. You don't believe that that's what Israel's doing. Although the leading US-Israeli scholar on genocide and Holocaust studies has told me he believes, after a year of studying this, that it does fit that description. But I'm going to ask you about your own officials here in the State Department. More than a dozen have resigned, and they're very, very deeply concerned that the actual American laws governing the use of military aid have not been followed. And furthermore, I'm going to ask you about the Israelis themselves who talk about war crimes. Moshe Ya'alon, the former defense secretary for Netanyahu, a Likudnik, not a bleeding heart liberal, ethnic cleansing and war crimes are taking part. And he's doubled down on that. The truth warriors at Haaretz who've discovered what Israeli soldiers have been saying, that they have, in the recent present, been even considering children who come to a certain area as terrorists. That the brave soldiers from Breaking the Silence are taking the confessions of IDF coming back. And, who many of them, some of them, concerned about what they have been doing. Are you prepared to say that war crimes have been committed by Israel?
I can't speak to individual instances. I can say, obviously, we've had concerns, more than concerns about the way Israel has conducted itself. Understanding, first of all, that this is a unique environment. one we haven't really seen before, one where you have a population that's trapped inside of Gaza. In virtually every other situation in the world, people are able to get out of harm's way. They become refugees in a neighboring country. That's not a good thing, but it's better than being caught in the middle of this kind of maelstrom. Second, uniquely, you have an enemy that intentionally embeds itself within the civilian population, in and under apartments, in and under schools, mosques, hospitals. That does not in any way absolve Israel of the responsibility, the obligation to conduct itself according to international law.
17,000 children.
But it makes it much more challenging. So we look at this very, very carefully. Israel looks at this very, very carefully. There are hundreds of cases that are within the Israeli system as we speak. Those cases, I believe and trust, will move forward to assess exactly what you've asked, whether individuals have committed violations of international humanitarian law, war crimes, you name it.